So what better way to get into the flow of 2022 than by remembering just how powerful you really are? And to celebrate that, I'm re-releasing a 3-part secret audio series on being powerful. Join me and my dear friend and fellow high-performance coach, Louise Cartwright, as we delve deep into being powerful. Today we're talking about what being powerful is and what it isn't. We're busting the myth that it's all about stepping into your power, and we're going to be showing you the signs and symptoms of not being in your power. So let's get started, shall we?
Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Project Joyful podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Tutty, your medical herbalist and high performance coach. So, hey, Project Joyful isn't just about being happy. It's about consciously creating a life you love. It's about remembering how to reconnect with your soul-centered joy. You know, that joy that comes from doing what you love, from living on purpose, and from being in a life that allows you to experience deep joy moment by moment. So, hey, let's get started, shall we?
Oh, I'm Louise.
Hi, I'm Tracy.
And we're here today to talk to you about what it means to be more powerful. This is the first in our 3-part series. And we're going to start straight off, Tracy, aren't we, with what does it mean to be more powerful?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's one of those things, I think, that people have so many different thoughts and feelings around being powerful. And, you know, so part of the conversation we've been having is about working out exactly what it means. And the place that we've come to is that being powerful is actually just our natural state.
Oh, I love that. You haven't said that before.
Have I not? Latest revelation.
But you're right. And I think, I wrote a post about this morning talking about there are so many buzzwords and there's so much BS around power, stepping into your power or owning your power. But in reality, that's actually what we are doing. So you've got to kind of use those buzzwords, but you're right. We were born infinite and, infinite in our possibilities, infinite in our awareness. And it's just life that's kind of taken that away from us. So I know we talked about at the very beginning, we wanted to kind of help people understand what are the signs and symptoms of not being in that power. What are some of the ones that you see commonly with people that you work with?
Well, I think one of the ways to start thinking about it is, that most common phrase we find about stepping into your power. It's something that really, I really don't like the energy around that phrase because it assumes that power is something that we turn off and on. Mm-hmm. We step in, we step out, we step in, we step out. Oh, I'm only going to be powerful if it's okay to be powerful. Nice. When we're little kids and we're naturally expressing our power, and the grown-ups who want to keep us safe and keep us fitting in within our tribe and within our social family, they're encouraging us to dampen down our power rather than encouraging us to, for example, express our power with love and compassion. So I think one of the first signs and symptoms is actually how you're describing it and the sense of putting power on and putting power off. Because if it's our natural state, we just are. And I think, part of the challenge with that is just by being powerful, sometimes there's this fear or presupposition that by being powerful, I'm actually stopping someone else from being powerful.
That's really interesting. And I think as well, not only stopping somebody else from being powerful, but making somebody else feel uncomfortable. So I'd like to just talk back, before. What I see for a lot of people, a lot of business owners, and you'll probably see this as well, is there's this fear of being visible. Yeah. And actually, if we break that down even further and step back from that, it's not necessarily being visible, it's being verbal, isn't it? It's verbalizing something that we believe, that we are passionate about, that we may even want to change the status quo on how people are perceiving that. So we want to change people's ways of thinking. But because when we were younger, we were told children are seen and not heard, or because we were told, just tone it down or just be quiet, or, when you're at school, you can speak at this time, you can't speak at that time. Or maybe there's, for a lot of us, there's been some real shame events. When we were very, very small, we wouldn't have known that it was shame, but maybe we said something that we thought was funny and people made us feel embarrassed. And so, and I feel that shame is a huge blocker when it comes to us verbalizing, what we want to say. And so when it comes into that power, You know, that power literally can be having the courage to say something, right, that might not fit in. So I love what you said there about, you know, turning it on and off, and also how we describe it, because we say the word power, and I don't know about you, but I instantly get a very masculine orientated picture in my head. Yeah. And I think that's why it's often deemed not ladylike.
Yeah. And even if you look back in history, you know, the Elizabeth I is, you know, she's one of those role models, I guess you would call her, who is often associated with power. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she is known because of the time that she lived in to almost denounce the fact that she was female. You know, even though I have the feeble body of a woman, I have the heart and soul of a man. You know, and it's about capturing the inherent power that's in that feminine energy as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is one of those things, again, where we get that, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like that split where we have to choose male or feminine, you know, alpha female, alpha male. We just need to just be. It's, you know, because I don't think we need to define it. I don't think, you know, that we need to say that being more powerful makes us less female. You know, I think it's really time that we stop feeling like we have to define all those things individually, so that we can own all of us. There are going to be time, you know, you can be powerful and cry the same as you can be powerful and put your opinion forward. It's finding that way that feels, you know, that feels good for you. So you said that one of the first signs really is about how we describe it, how we can switch it on or off. I'd like to talk about how it might impact. I know we're looking to speak to a lot of business owners in, you know, in this audio series, and in terms of what it does for us or doesn't do for us when we don't own this power, or when we don't own our own power when we're trying to run a business. I think it can really have a massively negative impact on our mental health. Because, you know, if we can't master our psychology, if we can't master our mind, then we talked about this briefly before we came on and started recording, about those little gremlins that start in your head, and they kind of remind you of all the things you're totally not capable of doing because you not realize who you are. Yes. But if we don't take that power back, and that power being exactly what you said, we are born infinite. We are born without restriction. The only restriction we've got is what we tell ourselves we're capable of, or what's available to us. And if we don't live that out, then, and we become sort of prisoner to what's going on in our head, then we never really fulfill ourselves professionally. Then we'll always be holding something back in our business, or perhaps fail. You know, 95% of people will probably just give up on their business because it's too difficult. Do you want to sort of talk a little bit about that? You know, how can we start to reframe that? How can we give that a different description?
Do you know, one of the biggest things I see with business owners when they don't want to see their business as a gateway to their power is, I think one of the biggest tells is when you ask them about the price of their service or their product, and they will tell you, oh, I don't really need the sale, or they're apologetic about naming the price, or, you know, they just, even in the tone of voice, you know, they're making excuses. They don't really want to talk about what they do, and they just want to keep their business as a small little side hustle where they don't really need the sale, because sale is a dirty word.
It's really interesting you should say that, because somebody posted on LinkedIn this morning, I say sale, you say, you know, that kind of statement.
Oh, potato.
It was really good. And the first kind of like 10 comments back were around, you know, sleazy, door-to-door salesman, you know, disingenuous and all that. And I thought it's really interesting, because I used to if someone said the words selling or sales to me, say 3 or 4 years ago, it would literally make me feel constricted inside. And it's interesting as well, isn't it? If you say, oh, the sales are on, like in town, and everyone's, I'm going to get some bargains and stuff. But we talk about selling, and we make it, and I do think that women are worse or better at this than men, in terms of we make it about us. We're selling ourselves, rather than we're selling a product or a service that is going to help somebody, right? So you're right. I think not owning our power, or to come back to that, owning that power, not allowing ourselves to be powerfully creating our own life. We make sales and selling and making money really personal, when it's anything but. And I want to just speak about something that's in the news right now. And I don't know the whole story, but I saw it briefly before I went to bed last night. The guy that's just offered to pay the entire college school fees off because he's a bum billionaire. And
cool.
yeah, and I literally just clicked on it this morning. So I don't know who he was, but it's some state, obviously university or college in America. And the guy is paying off all of the student debt. Now, let's just talk about owning that freaking power, shall we? Right?
Do you think they would make a difference in the world?
Oh, no, I think I just want to help 10 people with my small sale. It's, you know, and it's about, oh gosh, we could talk about this forever. I mean, I think there is a need for us to be able to expand our visions for ourselves, and that can be a little bit further on. Perhaps we'll talk about that in the next audio. But, you know, maybe the guy never set out to do that. But in his pursuit of building a career for himself and what have you, he's now left a huge legacy. He's impacted hundreds of people whose lives will never be the same, and given them an opportunity to start their life at a whole new level. Now, for me, that is power in the most positive sense, because you have had such a huge impact. So could I be as brave to say that perhaps one of the other signs and symptoms of not owning our power is that we get stuck in making it about us?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Don't we? We get stuck in the very singular aspect of who we are without realising actually that we are uniquely connected to to all that is. And I've personally found for me that I was able to develop much more courage and resilience for growing my business when I stepped away from it being a money-making machine, which is what it felt like it had become, and into what's the biggest impact I could hope for if I continue to do this. But I had to own
through my business.
Yeah, and I know when we're not making money, and people say, "Oh, just serve," and you want to kind of just give them the bird because you're like, "Well, I've got bills to pay, thank you," you know.
Yeah.
And I do get that. But actually, that motivation, if it isn't indeed motivation, can only last so long before it drags you down.
Burns you out.
It does burn you out. And it's robbing you of living, intentionally in every moment. And then for what purpose? To hit another income goal at the end of the month. Whereas if we do more of the work on ourselves and we start to connect back to that universal truth, whatever we do, we can make a bigger impact somewhere. It doesn't mean to say that we're all going to go off and create multi-billion pound businesses, but we can make it bigger than just what's going on in our head and what's going on in our bank account. Do you agree? Yeah,
it can always be bigger than what's going on in our head.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's interesting actually. I'm going to just share with the listeners that we pulled some cards, didn't we, before we started our session today?
Yes.
And what card did you pick out for us?
I pulled the Angel of Spontaneity.
I love that.
We'll be going to fun places in this conversation.
And what I love about that as well is that we'd said with each other we weren't going to script it. We were going to see what came up because we believe in that whole sort of, divine connection. And I actually pulled, this is from an amazing deck of cards called Osho Zen Tarot, which you can get on that really, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say names, but the really amazing mail catalogue that you can get online and get things delivered the next day. And I pulled the card of awareness. And the card of awareness tells us that this veil of illusion that I'm going to read it out to you, the veil of illusion that has been keeping you from perceiving reality as it is now starting to burn away. The fire is not the heated fire of passion, but the cool flame of awareness. The awareness that is growing in you now is not the result of any conscious doing, and nor do you need to struggle to make something happen. Any sense you have had that you've been groping in the dark is now dissolving and will be dissolving soon. And this card just kind of lets us know that I think one of the things that we need to do to return, that's the word, okay, so I'm hearing this word like it's the silent power. It's not something that we need to declare. It's not something that we need to exhibit. It's you just are. It's just this sense of knowing and, this courageousness that kind of builds inside of you. We don't need to roar that out. We just need to let that be the thing that drives us every day when the gremlins do start to have those conversations. And it does, I think that starts to come when we do drop the beliefs that are around us right now that are keeping us stuck in that area. And I want to just let people know now that actually at the end of this audio series, you're going to get an email with 2 amazing exercises to help you remove and change those belief systems. So one will be from myself and one will be from Tracy, and they'll come out in the last email. So make sure you keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the short and long term effect then of not owning your power. What do you feel is going on for people in the shorter term?
I think in the shorter term, there is this gnawing, growing sense of disillusionment. This feeling that there's something missing, or there's, it's something that they can't quite put their finger on. It's almost like a growing void or a sense of emptiness that sort of creeps up day by day. And the other thing I've noticed is when I'm in a situation where in order to express my power, there's something that needs to be said, I often feel it sort of welling up inside me, almost like, it just needs to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we are working with being powerful, being naturally powerful, the harder it is to keep that in.
Yes.
And what I've noticed is that when you're truly connected with that, what comes out is always said with love and compassion. So it's never something that's, said in the harshness of the moment. It is something that is like this true wanting to help, wanting to be more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting harder and harder to sort of hold that back in.
Yeah.
Is what I've noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love what you said there, like the disillusionment and something missing. And I want to go back to when I first sort of started in business. And I'm actually going to go to I think it's about 2000, I want to say 2013, 2014 that I first joined my first group coaching program. And it was a woman that had devised this 8-week thing about getting your business full with people and la, 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 la. And I remember going through the workbook. I remember getting on the calls every week. And with every subsequent call, I felt less and less. Because I felt like there was no clarity for me. I felt like everybody was so much further along the journey than me. Everybody was so much more sure about who they were than me. And it was okay, I'm just giving the picture of a huge kind of cruise liner, like going away from the dock. And I was still on the dock, like waving at everybody as they sort of went off. And it was almost like, this isn't for you. This is for everybody else, Louise. Everybody else who kind of knows that they've got their shit together. You really haven't. And I think that short-term stuff of that emptiness is because you're disowning part of who you are. But you don't know that.
That like there's an awareness there as well.
Yeah.
Like when you're waving the people off, send me a postcard from the beautiful tropical island, that sort of thing. It's like knowing that you're not being all that you could be, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think, we spoke about this a little bit before as well, is, I mean, we don't know what we don't know, but we do feel what we feel. And it's about a kind of creating a level of awareness where, I mean, one thing that we want to share with all of you is that, you're not your thoughts and you're not your emotions. They're kind of transient. And the ones that the things that you give weight to are the ones that will direct the pathway of your life. So if you give a lot of weight to the negativity and to the anxiety and all those things that we hold in, then they will keep sort of, they'll keep molding your reality. And we would like to suggest to you perhaps that if you do feel this element of sort of disillusionment, or that there's something missing, a void or an emptiness, that it's not something that you're going to retain. It's something that you've got to actually release again from inside.
Got to follow the clues.
Yeah. And it's
source.
Yeah. And we will be doing more about that in the next audio. But the session today was to really just sort of explain how we see it in clients, but also how we might have seen it in ourselves. So I think it's safe to say that we've both felt that disillusionment and that fact that and I think for me, there's a total sense of not fitting in either.
Yeah.
But actually, having just said that, I don't think you fit in when you're powerful anyway. because people are like, there's something about you I can't quite put my finger on and I don't know if I like it. So I think if you think that being more powerful is going to be better than not fitting in, it's just different. I think that's the thing there. But
it can be magnetic, though.
It can be what, sorry?
Magnetic.
I think so. I think, you can be around those people that just have this beautiful energy. And that's what we said before. It's not necessarily the roaring and the shouting. It's that beautiful serenity of being in the moment and being in alignment with, whatever you want to say, your high self or your highest expression, being able to, bring your thoughts back to thoughts that are resourceful, and live outside of yourself, live for the higher purpose, for making a difference in the world. Even if that means that, you do 3 random acts of kindness every day, that kind of stuff changes the world, right? It's not just in that moment. So,
I loved what you said about being silently powerful. It's such a beautiful image. And
I think it's, we've talked about before definitions. And for those of you that don't know, when we define something, when we give meaning to something, we have given that meaning probably many, many years ago, completely outside of our conscious awareness, and it will contain pictures. So when Tracy said there, like it created a really lovely visual, we have those visuals of what it feels like. And I think part of what we wanted to do was to remove that image from our head that power is pinstripe suits.
Or nothing.
Yeah, big shoulder pads, being a complete bitch. I think it doesn't need to be like that. I think if we think of people that have been, influential in our lives, certainly people that I look up to now that are, hugely sort of successful in the personal development or self-help realm, lots of them have this real just sense of, what's the word? Like they're sort of quite humble, and they do talk about that whole thing of just wanting to make a difference. And we've been not really taught to let that be something that drives us. It's kind of, success has always been in size. The size of your bank account, or the size of your community, or the size of your email list, or the size of your dress. And we can't do that. So if we ignore the short term, if we ignore this disillusionment and this void, and we don't aim for that sort of silent power and that sort of serenity, what are the long-term effects that you see, maybe you've experienced in yourself, in kind of not recognizing your power?
Well, I think the longer you ignore it, the more dissatisfied you have the potential to become. And I think, you can go for a long time pretending that it's not happening and talking yourself into being perfectly happy with your life. And then you get the wake-up call.
Yeah, I know in Derek Rydell's book, he talked about he'd had lots of little clues, over a long period of time. And then he had a near-death experience. And he said, you get these little nudges, and then the nudges get a bit bigger, and then the nudges get a bit bigger, and then eventually you get a piece of 2x4 around the head. And it's like, you're going to listen to this one. And I know that we both love Brendan Burchard, and he talks a lot about, let's make the decision to change rather than it being a reaction to something that happens around us. So, let's not wait until we get a diagnosis, or let's not wait until something really bad happens before we decide to live our best lives. And it does get to that point of, for me, I'll just share that. For me personally, the change came when I couldn't bear living one more day being so miserable and living in anxiety. It was, I wasn't living. I'd spent near enough my whole life in some way feeling less than. I was miserable. I was drinking too much. And I was like, something's not quite right here. Like, I'm pretty sure this isn't what the definition of life is supposed to be like. And it was that change to say, I don't know how this journey is going to go. I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to make that my job now, because I think the long-term effects are ultimately regret. Regret for the things you didn't do, or for the things that you didn't say, the things that you didn't, the things that you never gave yourself an opportunity to try. And then when is it too late?
Yeah. I love what you said about not knowing the how. Because I think part of this game we play with ourselves is choosing not to be powerful because we get caught up with, I don't know how.
Yeah. And I shared with you, didn't I, this morning, a coaching call that I was on myself, and the coach said, don't globalize your lack of long-term vision clarity in one area so that it kind of penetrates every other area of your life. Just focus on winning this day, because if you win this day, then you're going to win the week. And if you win the week, eventually you'll win the month. And I think, and if you win a month, right, you've only got another 11 to go and you've won the year. Woo-hoo! But also by giving ourselves permission. So I know we're going to start to wrap this one up in a second, but I think in terms of the business owners, would you agree sometimes that we can kind of drain away our power because we're obsessed with not having that 5-year vision, not having all the steps laid out, not having our website, our social media, our automations, our pricing, our this, not having all that perfect. We just literally watch our power draining away as we give all our attention to the things that we don't have in place yet.
Yeah, but if only I.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and when everything looks pretty, and when my social media is rocking, and when, then I'm going to be happy. Yeah, that's probably
not going to offer something to the world.
Exactly, right? So I think, when I heard that on that call this week, even for me, I could feel my soul go, oh, she heard that.
Nice.
She heard that. And so we would love to give you permission to know that the feeling state is what should, I believe, I don't know about you, Tracy, but that should draw us. That feeling state of, you talked to me this morning about, you really want to spend more time like in your garden because like your herbs and your flowers and things, they're your thing, right? Yeah. I want to spend more time in community with people and, being more present with my family and making the most of all the times that we've got together. Yeah. And that we can actually still make monumental progress if we just focus on the feeling state today and winning today, and just allow ourselves to be excited by what we're going to explore and what we're going to create and which direction we're going to go in. That's not to say that we're giving you permission to kind of completely wing it, because you should kind of know the direction that you're going in. But even if you know one direction, it's just about choosing that thing. And I think when it comes to power, choosing that you are totally okay with just nailing these 2 things this month will gain momentum. When you get momentum, you're going to get results. You get results, you get confidence, and it's that ever increasing circle. Whereas, yeah. So, anything else, Tracy, that you want to cover today before we log off on this one about, how not being in your power is showing up for people in their lives right now?
I guess, yeah. So the one thing that I would like to leave our lovely listeners with is that I would like to just invite you to be powerful, knowing that you have the wisdom to use your power with love and compassion.
I love that. And I love that word wisdom. I really love that. And we don't use that word wisdom enough, but you and I are doing the same training course at the moment, and Mel was talking about, we're not, in inverted commas, selling our certificates as such. We're selling our experience, and our experience gives wisdom. It's the same as when we use the methods that we use to help people remove sort of limiting beliefs or limiting behaviors. We still have the memory, but we don't have the emotional attachment. And the memory with the emotional attachment is wisdom, because we can say, I experienced that, I learned from that, thank you for that wisdom. And just being able to share that may just give somebody else permission to own their own experience and say that, okay, this can define me in a way that doesn't feel good, or I can let it define me in a way that feels really powerful in terms of owning that part of myself. So I love that. Now we're going to kind of wrap up now, but tell us what we're doing in the next audio.
So in the next audio, we are talking about superpowers.
Nice.
So what superpowers are you hiding away? Also going to be diving a little deeper into identity and how we can use our identity to serve being powerful.
I love that. Well, okay, so we're going to wrap it up and we will see you in the next audio. So make sure you check your email. See you for now.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.